Hi, this is Lisa Andria. Thank you for joining the Ladies Who Leap podcast. This particular episode is going to be a little bit different. I was up last night and I was thinking, I need to interview myself. I need to introduce myself and do it through the same questions that I ask of my guests. So, I have over here some of the questions in the same type of order that I usually ask of my guests, and I'm going to ask them of myself. You'll hear me ask the question, and then I'll answer it honestly and truthfully. I've been working through vulnerability issues, and I'm at a point where I want to be completely honest and myself, totally authentic, and not do any filters. So this is my gift to my own podcast, is interviewing myself. So I hope you enjoy. What happened in your childhood that influenced who you are today? Well, that's a good question. I would have to say that number one, there was a teacher, Mrs. C, who this was in junior high. I was in a high accelerated class, and in that English class, she had us write out a journal every day. The first thing we did when we got into class every day was writing in a journal. And she really nurtured our uniqueness as kids. And it opened up my mind to the creativity of writing. And when I remember, I don't have that journal anymore and I really miss it, but I remember that reading it many years later, it's like I had a headache every day. I talked very honestly because I knew nobody else was going to see it. I talked very honestly about how insecure I was, how I felt really ugly and ignored, and that I didn't want to flaunt that I was smart because I thought that people wouldn't like it, especially boys. I was very, at that age, boys are everything. And I had gotten pimples early, and the one boy that I liked asked me, "What are those things on your face?" So the insecurities were just so much that I loved writing. I found the value in putting my thoughts on paper every day. She really opened my eyes to that, and I appreciate her very much for it. I've not kept up with where she is now or if she's still alive, but she really had an impact on me. And the other thing was my mom. I watched how she took care of us, how much she wanted children, and at a certain point in her life, how she prepared for many years and asked for a divorce in the 70s when women just didn't do that. And so she was putting herself first, probably for the first time in her life. Now, I will say that she really put everybody else first for the rest of her life. But in that moment, she was able to say, I'm not happy. I really didn't marry for the right reasons. He's a great guy, but towards the end there was resentment and there was anger and there was fights and things like that. And she had the courage to step out on her own as a single mom. In fact, her best friends, their husbands didn't want them to communicate with her anymore. So we had to sneak around like during office hours during the day or when the husbands weren't home on the weekends just for her to be able to see her friends. So it was very courageous. I mean, hey, there were kids when I went to grammar school that were like asking me if I was okay, like I had a disease. So it was different. She was like one of the first ones in our little town in Connecticut that actually took that step. So those are the two people that I can think of that really affected me and inspired me in some way as to what I'm doing right now. What was your first leap in life and what did you learn from that? So my first leap was in high school, in my junior year of high school, about halfway through. Earlier that year, my mom got married, and Oh, it was actually the year before my mom remarried and I had a stepdad, and they came to a conclusion that they wanted and needed to move away from Connecticut. So my stepdad was a lineman and with the electric company, and they needed to get he needed to get a job wherever they were going to end up going. And I think he was offered a job in Colorado and then one in New Mexico. And so the decision in the end was to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico. So think about that for a minute. I grew up in Connecticut. That's all I knew. Cultural friends since I was a little kid. They carry with you into schools, and you went to dancing school with them and you played with them as kids, and then they went to schools, and you went from there. While I didn't have the best experience in school and then getting into junior high and then high school, I was either ignored or picked on. I was not attractive, big thick glasses, pimples, not really good cut hair, really skinny. And to have my parents say, my dad, my stepdad, and my mom say, we're going to go move across the country. I was in junior high. My mom said, okay, I don't want to take you out of, I mean, I was in junior year of high school. My mom said, I don't want to take you out of junior high, you're right in the middle of your junior year of high school. So you can live in a room with my best friend. I had a job at the time because I got a job right at 16 years of age, and I was like 17 at that time. And she said, no, I was still 16, somewhere around there. And she said, we're going to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico. You stay there, finish your junior year of high school, and then you can fly out and come with us and then move on from there. So I was moving from Connecticut to Santa Fe, New Mexico, right after my junior year of high school. I left everything behind. I have to admit, there was a part of me that was like happy to be moving, and there was a part of me that wasn't. Um, the part of me that was happy was I thought, oh, I can reinvent myself. I can just be a different person. Nobody knows that I was picked on. Nobody knows. And then the other part of me was like, yeah, but these are people I know. These are, as they say, these are like if you get a used car, you keep your car, right? If it's used, because you know what's wrong with it. I knew what the things I had to deal with. So it was familiar to me. What I didn't realize, and I kind of just thought of it just now, was thinking about reinventing myself was probably not really a reality because all of my trauma, all of my limiting beliefs about myself just carried across the country. Didn't matter. It carried with me. However, I was able to take, and it was almost set up. It was like a campus, and there were 3,000 students. It was a big school because it was the only public school in Santa Fe, New Mexico. There was a smaller Catholic school, high school, but this was the only public school, and it's a pretty big city. It's the capital of New Mexico. And I was, when I was picking classes, because they actually kind of like where you're in college, we went during the summer and had a day where you got to pick what classes you wanted to take. And I had a lot of extra credits. So once half a year was gone, all I needed to take was English, and I think I was done with math. And so I had all these electorates that I could take. I took another year, I took half a year of Spanish, and I took a jewelry making class. So I had, some electives. And one of the electives I took, because it looked really interesting, was a TV class. It was where we produce our own TV show. We had black and white cameras, okay, but it was actually put on public station, local public station. And I thought, that sounds interesting. So I signed up for it. It turns out that was where I found that, and my English class. Oh, I did also have to take English for the whole year. That was where I found out that I had the ability to speak. In my English class, you know how you have to do those stand up in front of the room book reports and speeches? I loved it. I got up there, and eventually the teacher said to me, Lisa, whatever you do, make sure you're speaking. And he even mentioned, like, be a politician or be someone who speaks for a politician. He goes, because you could convince anybody of anything. And it was kind of nice to get a compliment on something that I do. And it's something that has to do with confidence. So it was weird. I was not a confident young woman. I had a lot of insecurities. Over time, I figured out I didn't love myself. I had a lot of shame and blame for being that nerdy kid that was picked on, feeling like I was deserving of that. But when I stood up in front of people and I was prepared and I did research on certain topics, I had no problem giving that speech. I didn't even have a problem when I did reports of some kind. I did freedom of speech was one of the reports. I actually called because my mom worked with a lady who had her husband was a local newscaster, and because it's the capital, he was situated in the capital, and he would report on what the governor did and all that kind of stuff. I actually sat with all of those reporters for an entire day, and I sat in on a governor's press conference when some pretty big stuff was going on in New Mexico, and got to interview them and talk to them. And they were so nice. And I realized, oh, I want to be a journalist. I want to be one of these TV broadcasters, and I can do this. And I enjoyed public speaking. So here it was. I had my mission. I knew what I could do well, and I was like ready to go. So graduation came along. No, I did not have a date for the prom. No, I didn't have any other dates. Yes, my best friend was a gay friend who was a fabulous guy, and then another girl who I'm still friends with to this day. My mom, we okay, in my senior year of high school, the next leap was something that I had been wanting to do since I was a little kid. I always wanted to live in California, Southern California. I don't know if it was Brady Bunch and Partridge Family, but I knew I was supposed to live in Southern California. That was where I was supposed to live my life. And my stepdad and my mom had spent 1 year in Santa Fe, and there it's either super rich people or super poor. There really wasn't much of a middle class. I don't know if it's changed, but that was in the 80s. It was 1980, basically. And my stepdad, there were openings for linemen in California, and he got a job, and we ended up moving there in the summer after my graduation. So I was ecstatic. And let me tell you, I got contacts, let my hair grow, I got dates. I mean, it was quite a metamorphosis for me. It didn't change how I felt on the inside, but certainly my feelings and a bit of confidence and how I can convey myself on the outside was a big boost for me. So that was a big leap going from Santa Fe to California. And in the meantime, my mom had put in applications for me to go to University of New Mexico and major in journalism. And I was very excited. However, and I didn't realize this for about 15 years, I was equating going back to college with going back to school and being the nerd again. So I had made all this advancement in California, and I had like different date for a Friday night and a Saturday night. I mean, it was like, wow. And I thought, oh my gosh, she went through a lot, by the way, to get me into college and getting grants for me and a job at the library at the school so that I could pay for it. And I had a roommate who was a girl that I had met in New Mexico. So, I mean, I was set up. And before that summer was over, I had a boyfriend, and I told her I don't want to go to school. And I know, because we've talked about this before she passed, that it really hurt her. She went through a lot. But you know what? She let me make that mistake. She let me make that mistake. And God bless her for it. I didn't become the journalist. And hey, who knows? I did see a woman same age as me that got into New Mexico on the TV station and then eventually transferred to Southern California. And she's one of I forgot what station she's on, but I think it's the ABC affiliate, local Los Angeles affiliate, but she's a newscaster and had I may have been living her life had I gotten into it and gone and got my degree. But I didn't. And I spent 41 years in telecom and sales, working my way up. And then, even in the end, retiring twice. And in the second time, after the first retirement, demoting myself because of all the stress. So that was my second leap. And then my third leap was retiring, or actually taking a leave of absence before I fully retired and becoming a life coach. So tell everyone about your leap to becoming a life coach. That was quite the leap. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I had tried kind of a little programming business thing and did not work. I had no idea what to do. I had no one to look up to. My parents were not entrepreneurs. It scared the bejeebies out of me. I mean, it really scared me. But I thought, no, I've got lived experience. I need to help other women to be more confident, to be able to reinvent themselves, to find what it is that they truly want to do in life, and have the courage to take that leap of faith to do it. Now, at the time, I didn't call myself Ladies Who Leap. I called myself Reinvent Yourself with a UR. Anyway, and I did that. I took a leave of absence in 2018, which went into 2019, 6 months, and I became a life coach, found out about it, and thought, this is fantastic. And guess what I did? I started interviewing women that had reinvented their life, how they did it, where they got the courage, why did they do it. I was going back to those skills. I wanted to be Barbara Walters when I was a little girl, and I wanted to be a journalist. And I said, you know what? It's never too late. So I started doing that. Was no such thing as Zoom. So I was brought, I think, a phone, and I recorded it with a little microphone, went to the person at their house or at a restaurant or at my house and interviewed them. And then it was all audio. And then I put it on YouTube. I mean, I didn't know any other way to do it. I eventually had to go back to work and worked again for about 4.5 years, and then eventually really fully retired in December of 2022 and changed to Ladies Who Leap coaching and the podcast and one-on-one clients, and went from there. So that was quite the leap. I was really afraid to have my own business, to be my own person, to talk about what I do, not like a product or service that I was selling, data networks and all that stuff. No, I was talking about me. That's tough. For me, it was anyway. How did you figure out or get drawn to the modalities that you use to help your clients? I have a couple answers for that because there's two specific modalities that I use. The first one that I discovered was a simple message on LinkedIn. And if you are on LinkedIn and you're a coach or anything, you get those messages. Hey, I noticed this is what you do. I mean, they're saying to you, I can help you get so many clients, or if you learn how to do this, you can make $100,000 or more a year, six figures, all that kind of stuff. But I got a very subtle message about an ontological based assessment tool. And I was like, that was nice and subtle. And something drew me to it. So I made an appointment to talk to the lady. She is now a very dear friend of mine. This was almost 3 years ago. And she talked to me about the being profile. It's an assessment tool. It's also a framework, and it's a way of understanding the inner workings of how someone is being in this world. I was like, oh, I can't use it on my clients unless I've done it. So I said, let me take the assessment. You put me through a 2-hour debrief, and let me see if this is something I want to use. Well, it was definitely something I wanted to use. It gave me so many aha moments. Since then, I've taken 5 of them. Five, yeah, 4 or 5, and had many breakthroughs throughout that process. And Lucy Faulkner, who I've interviewed, so you can see her interview, and she talks about that and other things about her life. She's a fascinating woman and a great person, so check out that interview. Anyway, I realized that that's something I wanted to use. I went through the practitioner process. It was delayed a bit because I got breast cancer and was able to overcome that. Was caught early, had a mastectomy, and went through that. And there was 2023 was quite the year, I will just say. Um, Breakup with friend with a boyfriend, the whole thing. It was quite the year. But anyway, I picked that. And since then, very recently, actually, I've gone through a 3-month Thrive training, ontological coaching training, and delved even deeper into the framework that the being profile is all about. If you want to know or learn any more, please just send me a email and I'll have that information in here and I'll tell you all about it, especially if you're a coach because they do offer special cohorts and introductions for coaches because they're based in Australia, but we have people all over the world, Chile and the UK, Italy. Now here in the US, I was one of the first two that were became practitioners in the US, but since then there have been more. And then after that, I was talking to a coaching friend that I met on a call, and again, we still keep in touch. And she told me about neuro linguistic programming. So she did some work on me to release some of the baggage that I've been carrying around. And I was very interested in how she did this. And she told me, she said, I was trained under a Dr. Matt James. She said, you should check him out. I did. And I ended up taking, after the breast cancer journey was over, I took one of his NLP practitioner classes. It's like a 4-day, very intense. I did that. And I was so hooked, I said, okay, I want to go further. So about 6 months later, I took a 2-week intense with only one day off between each week. And I became a master NLP practitioner. And then I also got trained on mental and emotional release breakthrough sessions, which actually removes the original event that put the negative thoughts in your head and those limiting beliefs, that chatter, that mental chatter, like I don't love myself or I'm not enough or, all that stuff. I can release that. I was trained on that and I was absolutely blown away, and also hypnosis. And I was introduced to quantum physics and then the whole discussion about energy. So that really opened up my eyes about energy, how all of us are made up of energy, the energy of money exchange, the energy of communication, how most of the thoughts and behaviors and decisions that you make come from your unconscious mind rather than your conscious mind. All of that I got educated on, and I use that with my clients. And the breakthroughs, along with the ontological coaching work and the being profile, which is one of the first steps that I do, the breakthrough session is another signature step that I do to help you clear those negative thoughts. And it's quite an amazing process. It does take quite a few hours, but it's built into the program that I have. Um, and I'm really, really satisfied and happy with both of those. I'm learning more about things like human design and energy work, but those two things really took me from strictly working with clients from intuition and from my own experiences in life into a new way of more structured and more an understanding of what are the best questions to ask people. And then, of course, how to clear those mental and emotional issues in their head so you can release them. Talk to your own journey to loving yourself and finding your identity. Well, first of all, I will say I'm writing a book about this, and it's a book to help people to understand the importance and how to get to the point of loving yourself unconditionally. Again, it is a journey and it's lifelong. You don't just get to the point that I love myself and that's it. It is a continuous journey of setting boundaries, of being focused, of reinforcing the feelings that you have with yourself. And I'm going to be releasing that book in 2027. I'm still writing it, but my own journey started when I was taking the classes for NLP through Dr. Matt James, and we were learning the mental and emotional release, and we had to do it on each other, right? One day you did it on this person, the next day they did it on you, so we did it. And in my discovery part, the first couple hours, she asked me a lot of questions and really good questions. And it got to the point where all of a sudden I heard inside my head, I don't love myself. And I was so ashamed when I heard it. I leaned in close to the woman and I whispered it. I said, I don't love myself. And then I lost it. Because I thought, how shameful. Who doesn't love themselves? I couldn't even imagine it. I wasn't even something I had in my mind. I didn't even think about loving myself. And yet this was what came out eventually. Now, the woman who was giving me the breakthrough session was so happy she got to the greater problem, because that's what we're searching for in the beginning of the breakthrough session, so we can release what their root cause is for all of these issues and baggage and bag of rocks, as I call it, that you're carrying around. She was so excited. She got up and went to the people, the trainers that were sitting, help people. And she's like, oh my God. And I could hear her in the background, but I was bawling. I was just completely letting go and crying. And we take a break at that point, and I was able to go get lunch. I don't know how I did it. I mean, my eyes were just red. I was crying. I managed to get to a Trader Joe's and get something to eat, very small, and just put it in my mouth. I don't know how I did it. But that was my wake-up call. And she cleared it. She released it through that process. And when it was done, I felt lighter. I felt a weight off my shoulders, and I thought to myself, this was exhausting. Carrying this around, that I didn't love myself, which meant I didn't trust myself, which meant I couldn't receive the type of love that I deserved, was huge. Everything, imposter syndrome. I call myself a shapeshifter eventually. That's a title that I put for one of the identity voids that we'll talk about. I was a people pleaser. I did everything to get people to like me and want to be my friend. And truly, I probably looked desperate. So that's probably why people weren't even wanting to be my friend. My gosh, who is this woman? She kind of looks confident sometimes, but then she just has huge amounts of self-doubt and gets really affected when somebody doesn't call her to invite her to something or something like that. The FOMO was just huge. And so when I realized I didn't love myself, I was like, oh my God, at least I don't have to carry that around anymore. And it really had a huge impact on me. And it made me realize how big that was and how important self-love was. So my journey of coaching has taken from there. I continued to do the breakthrough sessions, and I found that I wasn't alone. I did some research with the book that I'm writing, and there's like 50% of the world admits that they don't love themselves. Men and women, although women, I think, have a higher percentage, while 95% of everybody knows that loving yourself is extremely important. I had no idea. So it's become a cornerstone of what I do, because as I was doing more and more breakthrough sessions, I found that a lot, like 90 some odd percent of the people that I was doing the breakthrough sessions on, and there were mostly women and some men, didn't love themselves either. And when that was released, it really changed their life a lot. They prioritized themselves. They were able to feel confident about, like, if they were a coach, they could call on new clients or talk to people that were even interested with working with them. And they would be like, yeah, let's have coffee, let's talk. Whereas before they were just so deathly afraid of even though they wanted to be a coach and they had taken that step to be a coach, they were deathly afraid of being a coach. And not loving themselves or trusting themselves was a big part of it. And so I realized that, and that was prompting me to write the book. There were other reasons for that, but it was also a way for me to understand the importance of self love. And I add the word unconditional self love. Because you can love yourself today because you did something really amazing. And then tomorrow you did a stupid thing and then you start beating yourself up. And heck, I still do that. I just did it last night. But it is this short rather than weeks and days where it lasts. And I remind myself again, I really do love myself. I really do love myself and understand that love is where it's at. Love is everything. So now I have an identity bloom method because I've realized that, especially women, we go through our lives not knowing what our true identity is. And when I say identity, I mean who you're supposed to be in this lifetime. Because we're in a physical body. I do I don't know if you do, but I believe in reincarnation. I believe, and it's kind of not, the word's not really used as much anymore, but that we are in a physical body and our soul, our energy is when we pass, stays. Your energy consistently stays with you. And each life, physical life, you learn more lessons, you carry it up to the higher power, you come back into another life. What you did in this life can affect what your next life is, all of that. I believe all of that. And this particular life of mine is one that is advancing farther than any of my other lives. I can tell you that. So I have created a quiz. So if you go to ladieswholeap.com/quiz, it is about the identity void types. One of them being the shapeshifter that I was. And it talks, you take the quiz and it tells you what it is that you most strongly identify with. Because usually you'll have percentages of all of them. There's 7 of them that I've put together. But the one that's the most is really an identifiable one that you may not be aware of because it can be hidden and it's not something necessarily that you're aware of. Because I feel, again, I think I skipped over this, but as women, we don't know what our true identity is until we start really looking at it and trying and wanting to be ready to figure it out, usually after 40. Those are the women I work with, is after 40. But all our lives, we're the mother, we're the caretaker, we're the executive or professional at work, we're the wife, we are the student, we're the um, children. We play all these roles, but we really don't know who we truly are until we stop to actually look at it. Now, I'm not saying it's everybody, but a preponderance of us women go through life like that. And once you identify what your identity void is, then you can better understand how to create your identity. It's a learning process. It's identifying how you've been living your life to understand how you can change it and how you can transform. So that's why I put the quiz together. One of the questions I always ask my guests is, who do you go to for support or help? That's a very good question. Now I'm being asking myself. One of the first people I go to for help, especially when it has to do with financial stuff and things, is my brother. As you can see, I really, really love him. And he is always there to talk to me, especially now that he's retired. He's got a lot more time. And he came the first week that I had my mastectomy. He was here. He supported me. He helped me. He cooked for me. He took walks with me so I could walk and get myself going to better heal myself. He lived through some complications I had after the surgery and drove me around Southern California to have some tests and to get myself in better shape. He was there for me. And I have a couple friends, good friends, one in particular that I've had since the 80s, who has always been there for me to talk to help when I have physical issues, health issues. And then I have a lot of coach friends, and I love them dearly. and they have helped me to transform myself from an energetic perspective, to help understand myself more, to give me support on being an entrepreneur. I mean, I have so many wonderful people in my life now that are okay with me succeeding and not jealous in any way. I've purged all those people out of my life, and it's how I get support on those bad days. Another question I ask all of my guests is, what is your favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation? I actually wrote this one and it's on my website. Confidence is knowing that nothing you do will ruin everything, but doing nothing will ruin your confidence. I don't know where that came from, but I realized that a lot of us fear taking the first step, thinking, oh my God, if I do this new thing, I am just going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything. Everything is going to go wrong if I take a step and I fail. No, it's not. The reality is you can't ruin everything. And taking that first step and making mistakes is okay. Because guess what? You learn from mistakes. One of the steps in the breakthrough session is when you're starting to recognize and release the negative emotions and the limiting beliefs. There's a part in the steps where it says preserve your learnings. So you're telling your unconscious mind, from this event, from this trauma, preserve the learnings from that, because at some point the learnings from that will be there when you need it. But you're releasing the actual trauma and the event so that you don't have those negative feelings that are tied to it. And it's true. I know that the year that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, had a mastectomy, and had some complications from it that were very painful, I grew the most that year. That's that 2023. I got rid of a boyfriend that wasn't serving me for many years, and I finally said, that's it. I even broke up with girlfriends. I purged some people from my life, and I had to start over in a lot of ways. But it was the best thing that I ever did. It truly was the best thing. So think about that. If you are sitting with yourself right now and you're in a place where I don't even know who I am, because I'll tell you, I woke up one morning at the end of marriage, and that's exactly what I did. Woke up and I was like, I don't know who I am. I had completely done everything that the guy that I was with wanted to do. And my mom warned me, by the way, and I didn't heed her warning. If you are not really living the life that you feel you were meant to live, and it's usually you're coming to this realization at a point where it's a crossroads. You're getting a divorce. You're getting retired. You're retiring, which is a celebration, but it's also a little bit of a grieving period because your identification with that job is going away. You've lost a spouse, unfortunately. Your kids have grown up and have left the nest, so you're an empty nester. Or in the case with me, the stress of what I was doing helped me to realize I really wasn't meant to do this. I was meant for other things. And no matter how old I am, when I get to the point of restarting a new life and really starting that life over, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can change your life. You can transform your life. You can have a new act in life. It's making that decision and making that commitment to delve deep, to learn more about yourself, and be open to whatever happens. And know that myself as a coach, or if you pick someone else and have another coach, that's what their job is. Their job is to take friendship and love to a whole nother level, to be there, to listen to you, to ask the right questions. That's what I needed. And I got it. And now I want to take what I've got received and I want to give it to other people. That's my purpose in life. I wish I knew it sooner. Maybe I could have saved my mom from the 3 cancers and 15 years of suffering that she had, but I know it now. And the last question I ask people is, how can people reach you? And you just need to type in Ladies Who Leap, LEAP. You'll see my website. Oops, I was crying a little. You'll see my website. You could put /quiz and you'll get the quiz to take. There's a little Let's Connect button on the upper right side. I've even put together a leapwithconfidence.com, and that's putting you through the journey of taking a leap, no matter how big and how small, with confidence. And it's 3 videos, and you can listen and watch them as many times as you want, and as quickly as you want, as you go through each of those steps of leaping. And hey, please check out this podcast and all the other episodes and make sure to subscribe, like, or follow, no matter what platform you're on. I want to thank you for being a Ladies Who Leap podcast viewer. I am doing what I truly love, and I am loving myself through the process. And I am working very hard to make sure that more and more and more women and some men, some lucky men, are able to do the same thing. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.